Hey everybody, I'm Ben from InterNatchy and we are on Natchy TV, and you may be attending a live class. We do free online webinars for home inspectors every month. Sometimes there's more than every month. And I do some classes, and sometimes we have our instructors do them, or sometimes we have special guests like today. Today we have Dave from Ladders.com. He's the National Safety Director at Little Giants, and Nikki, Marketing Coordinator at American Ladder Institute, ALI. And they're going to present on ladders, ladder safety for home inspectors. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for engaging with us and watching a Natchy TV webinar recording. All of our Natchy TV webinars are live and they're video recorded, so you can register and watch later. So thank you for that. But while I have you on online, let me tell you about something that's coming up that you may be interested in attending. It's our Professional Home Inspectors Convention 2020 in Southern California, in Ontario, California, not Canada, in Ontario, California, just outside of LA. And it's in October of 2020, and we're expecting about 1,000 home inspectors to attend, about 60 vendors, and we're feeding everybody breakfast and lunch. It's for a few days, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you have any time, if you want to do a business trip to Southern California at that time in October, I think it's around mid-80s. So it's really nice to get away. I look forward to seeing you there. But today we have some training about ladder safety, and we have Dave Francis online. And Dave, are you ready to go?
I am, yeah.
And Nikki, are you there?
I am here.
Well, thanks you two for being here, taking your time out for us and talking to us home inspectors about ladders. What are we going to talk about today?
So I'm going to kick us off. So thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Nikki Bartoloni, and I'm the marketing coordinator at the American Ladder Institute, ALI. Before I turn it over to Dave, I wanted to give a quick background on ALI and National Ladder Safety Month, which actually started this Monday and will extend through the month of March. The American Ladder Institute is a not-for-profit association dedicated to the promotion of safe ladder use. Our members are affiliated with the ladder and ladder component manufacturing industry, and we are the American National Standards Institute approved developer of ladder safety standards. We also offer free online ladder safety training modules, which you can find at laddersafetytraining.org. Each March, we sponsor a movement called National Ladder Safety Month, where we work with other organizations, our members, and partners to educate the public on safe ladder use in the home and at work. There is information on how to participate and become a partner in National Ladder Safety Month on our website, laddersafetymonth.com. And now I will hand it over to Dave, who's the National Safety Director at Little Giant Ladder Systems, who will lead the rest of this presentation.
Awesome, thank you, Nikki. Ben, it is the kickoff today of National Ladder Safety Month. The website, laddersafetymonth.com. Of course, the training modules for the ALI are at laddersafetytraining.org, and there's links on both of those sites back and forth to each other. Events throughout the month if you go to Ladder Safety Month, different modules each week on different things. So we encourage you to participate just as a viewer, because there's a lot of awesome content from the industry about ladders that gets distributed throughout the month. And I think this is our 3rd or 4th year doing this, and it's grown every year, and we appreciate your support. Why ladders? Top 10 violations from OSHA every year look about the same. Fall protection is always number 1, and residential fall protection is always the number 1 in that category. Scaffolding 3 and ladders 6. So really 4 of the top 10 deal with working at heights. Ladders, falls are the number 1 cause of fatality and injury in most industries, and ladders are a big percentage of the number 1 cause of accidents. So So this is a list of just the violations and citations written by OSHA, but the causes of fatalities and injuries, OSHA refers to them as the final or the fatal four. And falls is almost 40% of all of the recordables that they deal with. Now, OSHA doesn't categorize automotive, that gets dealt with by another agency, but comparing the two, falls and automotive usually are neck and neck for number one and number two as your leading causes of injury and fatality in the workplace. So by a long shot, 60–70% of all of the accidents that we're dealing with, the number one and the number two concerns that we have for you are getting to and from where you need to go and getting up and down on a ladder to do the job. So we thought we'd start the presentation by kind of talking about some of the OSHA regulations and actually going through them by the top 5 that are cited by OSHA, and then going into what, these are the ones that OSHA cites, but what are you facing in the real world? What's some best practices and real world situations that you find yourself in? So let's start with number 1. This is a number 1 by a long way. So 55% of all of the citations that OSHA writes involving ladders are because of this one thing, and that's that the ladder isn't 3 feet above the roof line. This doesn't correspond to 55% of the injuries. The reason this is such a high percentage of citations is it's easy to see. This is something that a OSHA inspector can see driving past a work site. So 3 feet above the roof line. The importance of that rule is one of the most dangerous places you can be on the ladder is transitioning from the ladder onto the roof. You need that 3 feet of ladder to hold on to as you transition on and off. We don't want you sliding down the roof and putting your foot down trying to feel around for where the ladder is. So number 1 by a long shot. While we're talking about it, and on this screen, the diagram there on the left-hand side is the one from all of the OSHA and ANSI handbooks. 3 feet minimum above the roof line, and then the angle that your ladder is leaning against has a calculation. We don't really want you to do a math problem when you set a ladder up, but there's a simple way to figure that out. And the fire department figured it out a long time ago. Everybody is built at a 4-to-1 ratio. Every time you set your ladder up against the roof, I need you to put your toes at the feet of the ladder, hold your arm straight out so that the palm of your hand is resting on the rung at shoulder height so that you can close your fingers on the rung. So palm of your hand, close your fingers. That will set your ladder up at the 75 degrees every single time. We build ladders to be used at 75 degrees. We test them at 75 degrees. If you use them flatter, that'll slide out from underneath you. And it just so happens that your body is a 75-degree indicator. So you don't need to measure anything. You don't need to walk it off or do a math problem. All you need to do is put your body in that position and you'll set your ladder up right every time. So do that simple thing every time. Set your ladder up, make sure it's 3 feet above the roof line. Now, the number 2 violation from OSHA is that ladders aren't used for their designed purpose. I have no idea how those guys got in that position. By the way, that's one of my favorite pictures. Really good friends, I guess. When we say ladders should be used for their intended purpose or the way they were designed, usually what that means is human nature is I'm going to grab the smallest, lightest ladder that I can, and then I'm going to stand too high on that ladder or lean it against a wall in order to get where I need to go. Sometimes you get these really elaborate setups. But we don't want creativity. Creativity is the enemy of safety. It's when you cut corners, take risks, do things different than the standard training and warnings that you get into problems. So know that there's equipment designed to do all of this stuff. Don't get creative in your setup. Get the right tool for the job. Now, there's something that happened in the industry just in the last few years that's kind of confused this issue, and that is the introduction of a leaning step ladder. So all of the ladder manufacturers in the United States right now have a version of an A-frame self-supporting ladder that is now designed to lean against the wall in the closed position. Know that they exist and that they're marked specifically to be used in the closed position leaning against the wall, but it doesn't mean that all A-frames are now designed to lean against the wall, just the new ones that are specifically designed. These have a pad at the top to support the ladder. The back legs lock into place so that they don't swing out and make contact with the ground to throw you off balance. The feet are redesigned to be used at those positions. A lot of people used their A-frame in this position against the rules or against the manufacturer's recommendation. We finally listened to those customers and designed the ladder specifically to do that. So if you've been trained not to do that in the past, know that there are ladders on the market now that are designed to be leaned against, but it muddies the water a little bit because if people see one guy do it, they think they can do it. Only on a ladder that's designed and has the right attachments to do that. So be aware that that's a situation now. Number
Dave,
3, yeah.
Go back to that other slide, the middle ladder, the back legs swing up now?
Yeah, so that's correct. And I believe that both Little Giant and Warner both have a leaning A-frame ladder that can open into an extension position. So really 95% of what a home builder or a framer, a construction guy would do, he could do with one ladder, because that would open from a 8-foot A-frame to a 14-foot extension ladder. He wouldn't have to have multiple ladders. So yeah, the innovation on the market right now is taking leaps forward. You know, we've had the same ladders forever. In the last few years, the industry's really made some advancements, not only in fiberglass technology, but in safety features on the product. So we're trying to engineer out. We used to tell you, just if you follow the rules, you won't get hurt because the ladder's strong enough. Now we're putting some safety features in place to, even if you aren't being as careful as we want you to be, we're still going to protect you with some, and we'll get to those in a minute. So standing on the top step or the top cap of the ladder, again, this is human nature. I'm gonna carry the smallest, lightest ladder that I can, and then when I get there, I'm gonna use what I've got. But the top cap of an A-frame ladder or the top step, neither one of those are considered standing platforms. If you're using an extension ladder, the top 3 rungs of an extension ladder should be above the roof line, but never stood on. So the only exception to that is if you're using a walk-through, which are posts at the top of your ladder that would allow you to walk straight through. In that case, you can step on those as long as you've got that 3 feet of guardrail going up from the top of your ladder. But this causes a lot of accidents and a lot of injuries because these are the ones that are fall from height that involve impact that really hurt a lot of people. So keep people off the top steps and top caps of those ladders. Inspection's a huge one. And it's one of the basic 4 rules in ladder safety, and that is choose the right ladder for the job, inspect it to make sure that it's in good condition, set it up level and secure, and then climb it between the side rails. Those are the 4 basics of ladder safety. What does the standard say about inspection? Well, the walking working surface standard that came out changed the actual definition of when to inspect, because forever we said inspect every time. The standard actually now reads ladders should be inspected before initial use in each work shift. So if you're a service home inspector or a service provider that's doing multiple ladder uses a day, we want you to inspect that ladder before the start of every work day. You might take that ladder off of your vehicle 2 or 3 times during the day. But at least at the start of every shift, or if the ladder's dropped or bumped where it would need to be re-inspected. And in a minute, we'll go through exactly what we want you to look for in a good inspection. NIOSH has a fantastic app. If you go onto your app store, that's the icon. Download a free NIOSH ladder safety app. That'll get you a lot of proper use and proper inspection information. So we highly recommend that NIOSH app. The last one is, this one's probably the most discussed, and that's, the rule is ladders shall not carry any object or load that could cause them to lose their balance or fall. What we normally refer to this as is 3 points of contact. But 3 points of contact is as you ascend or descend, we want you to maintain 2 feet, 1 hand, 2 hands, 1 foot. In other words, we want you to keep balance and control as you're going up and down the ladder. We also don't want you to carry any big object or load that's going to cause you to lose your balance and fall. So the 3 rules that go together are face the ladder, don't carry any big, heavy, bulky thing up the ladder. It needs to be brought up some other way, and use at least 1 hand as you ascend and descend.
And if you're carrying something, Dave, like the 3-point control is impossible if you're carrying a bundle of shingles.
Yeah, so the rule, especially for home inspectors, you might have a clipboard or a small tool or a tape measure, any of those things that can be attached to a belt, or so that you can maintain balance and control as you come up. Small tools are technically okay as long as you can still maintain your control as you go up and down. Any heavy object needs to be brought up another way. And roofers are the worst, because they're carrying up bundles of shingles and all sorts of other stuff, and they've always carried them up ladders. But really, that stuff needs to be brought up another way, and that's why it's one of the top 5 most cited violations.
Yep.
So let's go from what OSHA writes up citations for to what the ALI, which is made up of all the ladder companies, actually trains you to do. And we do have that training module at laddersafety.org that goes through and gives you a pre-test, a video to train you, gives you a post-test, allows you to track employees and print out certificates of completion. It's free and it can be used on any computer. So there's this huge resource available from the American Ladder Institute that you need to use to do your training. If you don't want to do on computer training, we can also provide on-site hands-on training with professionals from the different ladder companies that are willing to come out to your job sites or to your association meetings and do in-person training. So you can go to that website and schedule that kind of stuff as well as the Ladder Safety Month site. Rule
That's
number 1.
Resource.
Yeah,
That's a fantastic resource. It really is. Good job.
And because it's done by all of the ladder companies together, it's not a sales piece in any way. It's just a generic OSHA ladder safety training and state-of-the-art stuff, and it's free, so it's a bargain. Again, the 4 basic rules of ladder safety: choose the right ladder for the job. Most of that time means don't climb up on objects, tables, chairs. Don't get creative. Don't do stupid stuff. Use the ladder that is right for the job to do the job. Those are not really made of wood anymore. Wood ladders are mostly for some Pinterest decoration project. Aluminum ladders are considered kind of homeowner. The only difference between the aluminum and the fiberglass is aluminum conducts electricity. So most industries are going to recommend that you use a fiberglass ladder because it'll insulate you from electric shock. We want you to use ladders that are 250-pound rated or better. It doesn't say industrial until 250. So if you're using a 225 or a 200-pound rated ladder because it's lighter and easier to pack around, know that you're using a homeowner ladder in an industrial application. And that's going to come back to bite you if you ever have an issue. So don't let your employees think they're doing you a favor by buying the $39 special on Black Friday, because that's the wrong ladder for your trucks. You need fiberglass, 300-pound. Know that rarely is a ladder used by one guy, and everybody has somebody on their crew that's going to push that 300-pound mark. So even me, once I get my clothes on and I realize that I don't weigh what my driver's license says I weigh, and I pick up a tool to go up, I'm getting close to that 300-pound mark. So 300 pounds or 375 because you're planning on everybody on the job site. And it's not uncommon for somebody else on the job site that doesn't work for you to grab your ladder and use it. So Bubba might be over there working on something electrical, and they call him Bubba for a reason. So make sure you have the right weight rating. Make sure you have the right style of ladder. Extension ladders need to be leaned against something. Staircases are tricky. Don't get creative. Know that every ladder company in the world makes a articulating ladder. Most people refer to them as Little Giant style because we're the inventor originator, and they've seen our infomercial on TV. But every company, every store sells a multi-purpose ladder that will safely go in a staircase. So don't get creative. If you get into uneven surfaces, know that there's a product that'll actually do that safely. If you don't have the right size ladder, go get a bigger ladder. Stay off those top rungs. Don't use anything to raise a ladder. Don't put a ladder on carts or pallets or tables. Don't try to stack ladders on top of other ladders. It's called lashing, and it's forbidden by the standard. There's just no rope or duct tape that's going to put two ladders together to make a ladder that's going to be strong enough to do the job. So if you don't have the right size ladder, stop what you're doing, get the right size ladder for the project. Now, I'm going to apologize for the ladder industry. We have lied to you about how long your ladder is forever. A 20-foot long extension ladder is two 10-foot sections that end to end make 20 feet, but there's 3 feet of overlap on a standard extension ladder. So your 20-foot ladder end to end is only 17 feet long. We need you to be 3 feet above the roof line. So if you're going to a 20-foot roof line, you can't use a 20-foot ladder. You're 6 feet short. You need a 28-foot ladder. So know that ladders aren't as long as they say on the sticker, and you can't use or shouldn't use the top 2 steps of an A-frame or the top 3 rungs of an extension ladder. So you have to calculate all of that in when you're making a ladder purchase. And again, human nature is I want the lightest, smallest, easiest to carry product, but you need a ladder that's going to get you to where you need to go. So understand the sizing of ladders. Now, they're getting a little bit better, and so if you read a little bit closer on the label, it'll say this is a 20-foot extension ladder. It only has 17 feet of working height, but the marketing department will sometimes get involved and say, you can reach 20 some odd feet if you're standing on the highest rung on this ladder. But still, if you're trying to go to a 20-foot ledge, you need to understand that your ladder isn't 20 feet long. And I need you to be 3 feet above. So know the sizing, plan accordingly. We just sold ladders that way for 100 years, and I think we're just going to keep selling them that way for the foreseeable future. So inspection, this is a big one. I took this picture stuck in traffic down in LA. The top ladder has a 2x4 bolted into the bottom leg. Doubt they did the ANSI testing to see if that was adequate. Second ladder bent and twisted. Third ladder duct tape, no feet. All of these ladders should be on their way to the dump. All of these ladders are on their way to a job site. Now, a ladder in new condition is almost never going to be the cause of an accident. Ladders are manufactured at a 4-to-1 safety ratio. So if you have a ladder that's got a 250-pound rating, that ladder has been tested at 1,000 pounds. So if somebody says, well, I was just standing on the ladder and it buckled underneath me and caused me to fall, that's almost never what happened. So the ladder was either damaged before you climbed it, and it should have been caught in the inspection before you used it, because a damaged ladder could fail. If the fiberglass is cracked or split, I don't know what it's rated for, and neither do you. That just needs to be taken care of in inspection. What I see in accident investigations a lot is people will be standing on an A-frame ladder, which is flared at the bottom. They'll say, something happened, I went over, got hurt. When I got myself up, I could see that the bottom of the ladder was bent. And so I assumed that the ladder bent in and caused me to fall. That's actually not what happened. If the ladder was going to bend it in any direction, it would bend out because it's already flared out. It's physically impossible for it to bend in unless it's being impacted from the side. What happens in a fall dynamic is I overreach or I lose my balance, which means I fall to the right. And in my head, I think I make this big arc and go flying way over there, but gravity has very specific rules, and you go straight down and you kick the ladder over while you're doing it. And what's straight down from you when you fall off a ladder? The base of the ladder that you fell off of. So in most of those cases, I'll say, you have a 4-inch bruise someplace on your body. It's either on your torso or your hip. Where is it? And they go, oh yeah, it's right here across my rib cage. How'd you know I had that? And I was like, well, the only way you can smash a ladder in is for a 200-pound person to fall 6 feet, because it takes thousands of pounds of force, and you just can't generate that kind of force to damage a ladder unless it's already broken or unless you're impacting it. So think about the chair you're sitting in. The only way you could break it is jumping on it or picking it up and hitting it against it. It would require some sort of impact force in order to damage it. So make sure that your ladders are in good condition. What does that mean? The one thing that people always forget are the feet on their ladder. And I just like to say the feet on your ladder are like the tires on your vehicle. They're made of a soft rubber material. They have tread. They're meant to grip so that you're holding your ladder in place. Over time, that tread wears out, and just like the tires on your vehicle, once the tread wears out, those feet need to be replaced. You don't have to buy a new ladder. You just have to replace the feet. Ladder companies sell them. We got stacks of them. It's usually a nut and a bolt. Make sure that the feet are in good condition, because that's your contact to the ground. So look at the feet on your ladder next time you do an inspection. Make sure they're in good condition. If the side rails of your ladder are bent, broken, cracked, or split, it needs to be replaced, especially if your ladder is fiberglass. Fiberglass cannot be repaired in the field and be brought back to its original specifications. Once it's damaged, it's a resin, it's a plastic resin. Once that plastic resin is cracked or split, it loses its mechanical properties and you can't fix it in the field. So it needs to be replaced. The downside of fiberglass is it also wears out in the sun. It's a property of fiberglass that sunlight wears it out, and you've seen bright orange ladders that at 2 years later, they are a faded pale color. If they're faded, they're not bad, but if it's a decade and they're faded to the point where you can feel the fibers through the resin, then if you can feel those fibers, that means those fibers can absorb moisture, and your ladder can either fiber bloom and expand and create a weak spot, or it can become waterlogged and it can conduct electricity. So after, depending on where you live and how much time that ladder spends in the sun, so it's an inspection that you have to do and make that determination. But if you can feel the fibers, that ladder needs to be replaced because it's going to no longer be an insulator, and it's not going to have the same weight rating. Steps and rungs are kind of the same thing. Broken, bent, cracked, or split, you don't use it. But also, those steps or rungs of a ladder have tread on them, so they have extrusion marks that act as a gripping surface for your foot. If those indentations are all filled in with dirt or tar or paint, your foot's not going to hold on those ridges. So you need to make sure that those rungs are free from any of that debris or oil that's going to cause it to be slippery, and that you have access to those treads to make contact with the ground. The third rule, so first we've picked the right ladder for the job, then we inspect it to make sure it's in good condition. Now we're going to set it up as level and as flat as we can. And there's a reoccurring word in the OSHA standards. And I was going to start off with this, and I think I forgot. The two standards that we're talking about for ladder use with OSHA is 1926 subpart X, which is the 1926.1053. So that's starting in B, is going to give you a couple of pages of very specific ladder requirements from OSHA. Now that standard is the construction standard, and construction has a 6 foot, anything over 6 feet, you need to have fall protection. The 1910.23 standard is now being referred to as the walking working surface the last couple of years. That's the general industry standard. And the main difference between general industry and the construction standard is general industry has a 4 foot fall protection. So if you're working at 4 feet or above, you need to have guardrails or fall protection with a harness and a lanyard. Know that by the standard, ladders are exempt from any kind of tie-off. So if you're on a ladder, regardless of your height, and you're maintaining 3 points of contact, the standard doesn't require you to be tied off. A lot of companies have written that rule into their safety procedures. If it's your rule, it is the rule. If you are transferring onto a higher elevation, and that elevation is above that 4 feet, you would need to have fall protection available. The only exception to that rule in this standard actually comes into play with you as home inspectors. If you're doing an inspection where you're going to be spending a very short amount of time going up to do a look, make some notes, and come back down, you're by the standard exempt from needing fall protection in that situation. But if you're carrying any kind of tools up there, then that changes really quickly, that you're doing work on that roof. At that point, you'd need to have fall protection from the time you stepped off that ladder. I meant to say that at the start, but those are the two standards that we're taking all of this information from, and they're freely available on the internet. Just type in OSHA 1910 or 1926, and you can read it, read all of them. And I think there's links on the ALI website to everything as well. Setup's critical. in a setup situation, and we'll talk about this a little bit as well, 1 inch off at the bottom of an extension ladder equals 19 inches off at the top of the extension ladder from center. So that's at a 28-foot extension ladder. It's like 14 inches off at a 24, but it multiplies greatly. And so just a small fraction of an inch off at the bottom is going to cause you to be able to tip and fall easier one way or another. So setting up level and not getting creative in your setup is key. One of the 3 key things in proper climbing. Again, the 4-to-1, here's a perfect example of toes at the base of the ladder, hands straight out, palms of your hands on that 75-degree. That'll set you up perfect every time. 3 points of contact is, again, more of a rule to prevent you from carrying big, bulky items up and down a ladder. We want you to maintain balance and control of you. The gray area in the standard is that in the US standard, it never says what you're supposed to do when you're going to stop and work from a ladder. And so some people have interpreted that to mean, well, if it says 3 points of contact, that means I can never let go of my ladder with more than one hand at a time. All of the ladder safety training from the manufacturers and all of the OSHA training material in the past 20 years has said, if you're going to stop and work off of an A-frame ladder, you lean your leg into the ladder to maintain balance and control with your body, and then you do your job. The British standard, which is the picture in the high-vis green, has actually called that out, and we're looking for a letter of exemption or explanation from OSHA on this. Is if you're going to stop and work from a ladder, the British standard clearly states you keep 2 feet on the same step, your body, knees or chest leans into the ladder so that you can maintain your 3rd point of contact as you let go with both hands to do whatever that job is. And if you think about an A-frame step ladder, the really only purpose for that is as a work platform. You would never use a step ladder to transition to a higher level. That's the job of an extension ladder. So the only reason to go up and down an A-frame ladder is to work, and most of the jobs that you would do from an A-frame ladder would require both hands. Again, if your company policy is you can't let go with both hands, and some companies have written that into their policy, you need to be aware that that is your rule, and you need to look at a product that has a guardrail attached, because rarely is there ever going to be an engineered anchor point above where you're going to use a ladder in order to tie in with a harness and a lanyard. And it doesn't matter how good of a harness and a lanyard you have if you don't have a place to tie it off to. So if you do have a rule that says you have to maintain 3 points of contact at all times, know that there's products on the market that you can use that have guardrails attached to allow you to do that work. But that is kind of a gray area in the standard because we don't specify exactly what to do when you're working from a ladder. We only say what to do as you ascend and descend. Again, we want you to face the ladder at all times, and sometimes that's difficult because on an A-frame ladder, in order to get close enough to your work, you usually turn the ladder sideways so that you can get up against the work, which causes your body to have to, it's bad ergonomics. You're standing on the ladder and then you have to turn at the base at your torso to kind of face your work. So use caution in this situation. We want you to be as safe as possible, but definitely don't turn around and face away from the ladder at any time. Let's get into what are the real life problems with ladders. We kind of talked about what OSHA has what cited people for, but what's the real life scenario? And we've done some research as an industry with the American Ladder Institute. And it's surprising when you go and look at the numbers. The number kind of varies depending on what website you read it from. The most common that I see is nationally, we see about 168,000 emergency room visits that are ladder related. And if you divide 168,000 by the number of work days, that's about 500 people a day that are going to the emergency room because of a ladder. About half of those people go see a doctor not because they fell from a ladder, but because ladders are too heavy and ladders are too bulky and awkward, and people hurt their backs and their shoulders and let me use Comcast as a perfect example. And as home inspectors, you might be in a similar situation. Comcast has 50,000 technicians that are keeping cable TV going every day of the week. Those technicians average about 10 installs a day, which means that they have to take their 28-foot extension ladder off of their truck 10 times a day. A 28-foot extension ladder weighs 72 pounds. The single carry limit for most states is 50 pounds. Some states are 40 pounds. So we're exceeding the single carry limit, but all of these technicians are taking that ladder off of their truck 10 times a day. That's 500,000 handles that just Comcast has to worry about. So you can see where that 200 people a day number could be real easy to come to when you calculate all those other service companies doing multiple ladder handles with a 70-pound ladder. Now it's not 70, that's not 70 pounds in a box. That's 70 pounds stretched out over 14 feet that you're taking off of a 7-foot high ladder rack, which means you probably had to climb up on the wheel well or the door jamb of your truck in order to get that ladder off in the first place. So you can see just the handling of ladders is actually the cause of the majority, the highest percentage of recordables isn't from falling, it's from just handling big, heavy products. So what's the answer? The easy answer is have 2 people carry the ladder, but that's not the economic answer. Most companies aren't going to do that. Fiberglass technology has come a long way in the last few years. We've been able to reduce the weight of an extension ladder by almost 30%, and all ladder manufacturers right now make a lighter weight version of their extension ladder. You just need to know that it exists. So the 28-foot extension ladder that used to weigh 72 pounds now it weighs 50 pounds. Do you think the technicians like the 50-pound one better? Sure they do. So much so that the 72-pound ones are accidentally falling off of trucks every day so that they can get the 50-pound lighter one because they like them that much. So that's so you know people like the product when they're staging accidents with their product to get the new one. Know that your ladder supplier will have a lighter weight version of the ladder, and if you're having a problem with strain and sprain injuries, there is an answer to that. So look for lighter weight ladders on the market.
And that's a Little Giant right there.
So this is the Little Giant ladder. We do have the lightest one on the market, and but everybody else has got their version now. So leveling's a huge issue, and let me just ask you, no one's going to answer, but we'll just say, how do you level your ladder when you get to a job site and the ladder's not perfectly level? Well, most people.
I used to dig a hole.
Yeah, so
I used to dig a hole. I carried a handheld.
Actually, digging a hole is the preferable way. Most people will say they just use a brick or a board. So instead of building up a Jenga pile of loose odds and ends to level your ladder, that's going to save your life. We'd prefer that you dig a hole to try and level it. But even big companies like AT&T used to carry 1x1 pieces of plywood in different thicknesses so they could build a little tower to level their ladders, because you get to a person's home, they don't want you digging in their flower bed for you to go up and get on their roof. And so there are levelers on the market, some built right into the ladders, some that are third-party accessories that will level your ladder. But it is key to have your ladder leveled, because an unlevel ladder is a component of that fall from height from overreaching. So if your ladder is a fraction of an inch off to the right and you reach that direction, you're more likely to go over. And those tend to be the ones that are life altering or life threatening, because they involve impact. So stay off those top steps. And let me just quickly, we did a test trial where we actually changed out a company's A-frame ladders in the middle of the night, with their permission, of course, 2 ladders that didn't have a top step. And then the crews came in and got in their trucks and went out the next day, and every single crew called in and said, hey, the ladder you put on my truck, it's not big enough to do the job I need to do, which just said they were always using the top step and the top cap of their ladder. So know that that's something people do on a regular basis, but it's against the rules and it's dangerous to do. So make sure that they have the right size ladder on their trucks, and that they're not using that cheat step. Now, somebody asked me one time, they said, why do ladder companies put the step on there if you're not allowed to use it? And the only answer that I had was, that's where we put the sticker that says, this is not a step, don't stand here. So doesn't make sense, but know that it's an issue. Overreaching is the #1 cause of fatality and disability. And if you don't remember anything from this webinar, I need you to remember this one thing. Whenever you're on a ladder, you need to keep your body between the side rails. No matter how good you think you are, you can't stick your leg out one side and balance yourself out to get that one last thing. Just climb down, move your ladder over, and climb back up, because every single terrible story that I have to go investigate starts with, it was that last thing that I had to grab, and I just grabbed a hold of the side rail, stuck my leg out, and I was trying to get it, and then I don't remember anything, and now I'm in the hospital. So at least 1 person a day is a fatality because of this. Around 35 people a day are permanently disabled because of this. So if you don't remember anything from what I said except this, always keep your body between the side rails of your ladder, and that's going to be key. We do have a ladder on the market. You see a standard traditional ladder on the left, leveled with a stack of boards. The new style on the right has outriggers that triple the width at the base and level to the ground. You're never going to tip that ladder over because you can't get outside of the footprint. So there's technology out there to provide safety, even if people are getting outside of the footprint. That did win Product of the Year just a couple of years ago. But even with that base that levels to the ground, because we made the ladder lighter to start with, even with all of that on there, that's still lighter than Grandpa's extension ladder that you've been using for decades. So there's lighter stuff out there that's safer by design. If you have a 3-point of contact rule, know that there's products made by different companies that have guardrails in place so that you can climb up to the top and have a guardrail instead of having to tie off from above. So that's technology that exists, and that's a safer, more comfortable way to work at height, is to, instead of figuring out how to catch the guy when he falls, is give them a guardrail. So don't park an ambulance at the bottom of the hill, put a handrail at the top of the hill.
That's pretty nice.
Just centers them inside the footprint of the product, gives them something to hold on to, and then they're standing on a big platform so that they can work in 360 degrees and not have to worry about where they're tying to. So The ladder industry has made a lot of, now one last, I didn't get that in there, but the goal here is to get people home. And let me just throw one more thing that we found from the ALI is when we did our surveys, one of the biggest causes of accidents on ladders is something as simple as people stepping off before they get to the bottom rung. So every single day people step off. If you've not done it off of a ladder, you're probably lying, but I know you've done it in a dark staircase where you thought there was another step and there wasn't, and you did that weird step that almost blew out your ankle or your knee. Every single day, guys are coming off of extension ladders and A-frame ladders, and out of the corner of their eyes, they think they're at the ground and they step off from the second or the third rung. So really the most dangerous rung on your ladder is the second one from the bottom, not the second one from the top, by the number of accidents that we have. So it's a matter of training. We have Little Giant has a product that's called a ground cue that actually has a clicker on the bottom step that we can hopefully condition the climber to know that the bottom step is different than all of the other steps. But really our goal as an association, as an industry, is to try to get people home at the end of the day. We've got to reduce those numbers of fatalities and disabilities and get people home in good condition at the end of every shift. If we do our job right, designing safer products and providing safer training, the accidents won't happen and people won't even know we did anything. They'll just make it home at the end of the day, not having an accident. So as an industry, that's our goal, is to reduce accidents and save lives. If you need any answers on some gray areas in OSHA, I started working for Little Giant Ladder in 1982 and have been acting as their national safety director for the last decade. And so if I don't know the answer to your question, I know who to ask. My email's easy. My name's Dave and I work for a ladder company. So my email's dave@ladders.com. That's my phone number. Text me or call me. I'll be glad to talk to you, answer any questions. But really, as an association, bringing people home at the end of the day is what we really want to do. We don't want to be the manufacturers of a product that hurts people. So we want to make safer products, provide safer training, get people home at the end of the day. As home inspectors, you know that you're getting yourselves into a different situation and scenario with every single house, different leveling, different bushes, different roof lines. One of the words that keeps popping up over and over again in the OSHA standards is secure. If you can't set it up perfectly level, we need you to secure the ladder. If it's on slippery conditions, it needs to be secured. If it's several lines in the standard refer to, if you're going to use it in less than ideal situations, make sure it's not going to move. So very rarely are you guys setting up a ladder in perfect conditions. So in any way you can secure that ladder, make it as level and as secure as possible before you climb. Don't become one of the statistics, and make sure that you climb safe, get home to your families at the end of the day. So we have just a few minutes for any questions that popped up at the end, or Nikki, if you have anything.
Yeah, I don't see any questions coming in quite yet, but Dave, I wanted to really thank you for doing the presentation. That was probably one of the best webinars we've had in a long time. So I really want to thank you for that.
Which I think he says to everybody that he does webinars for. So, but you know, it's amazing is that I'll talk about ladder safety, and at the end, people will go, I didn't think anybody could talk about ladders for 5 minutes, much less an hour. So
No,
my poor wife has to live with me and hear about ladder safety every day. So
well, I wanted to thank you. That was really great. And thanks for keeping us safe out there. And Nikki, thank you for bringing everybody together. Especially, I want to thank you for that free online course, that ladder safety course at AmericanLadderInstitute.org.
use
That's
that
really great.
and go to laddersafetymonth.com and participate in Ladder Safety Month, and all the links are there as well.
Yep, wonderful. All right, you two, Dave and Nikki, thank you so much, everybody. I want to thank you, and be safe out there, and go to those resources that Dave and Nikki mentioned, and I'll see you next time on NACHI TV. Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.